The Insurbries have come to the desert to claim the riches of Bactria, dominate the spice trade, and push their influence out into Asia. Hey, how's it going, guys? My name is Jackie Fish, and welcome back to another glorious online Divide et Impera battle. In today's engagement, this is just a 1v1, but it's large armies, so the battle is going to be absolutely insane, and I can't wait to see these two forces going toe-to-toe in DEI. One of the stronger Greek factions in Bactria with their pikes and heavy shock cavalry going up against the Germanians in the Insurbry with their heavy shock infantry and their really strong skirmishers. It's going to be a very, very exciting battle, and I can't wait to see what both of these players are going to bring to the table, especially obviously in DEI with the combat just being a little bit juicier with all the new DEI mechanics. Is going to make things very, very interesting. So just to quickly take a look at the armies before we do get stuck right in, because there are so many beautiful and custom units in DEI, I kind of feel like I have to do this. On the front line, we have some very light missile units, which are going to be obviously a pretty effective skirmishing unit. I believe they have 190 range, just like most slingers, so they'll be able to hammer away at the Greek pikes as they advance. That's going to be very important to do, because if them Greek pikes can just get stuck in, then it's going to be pretty scary, because they are almost unbreakable from the front. Then as we go further back, we do have some of the media Phalanx infantry, so a fairly medium to high tier spear unit here. Generally, one of the amazing things about DEI is the armor is very, very telling on how good a unit is. Generally in DEI, you can take a look at the unit, and that will tell you how good the unit actually is by the quality of their armor. Now, there are a few units that maybe get a little bit deceived, but for the most part, that is true. For example, right here, this is a medium infantry unit. You can kind of tell by the lack of any metal armor on. They haven't really got like heavy weapons or anything like that, so you know what this unit is kind of designed for. And also another big telling factor as well is that it's got 300 men in the unit. That again generally tells you that it's kind of more of a not a meat shield unit, because these units can be deadly and they have definitely a role, but they definitely play a different part than, say, a heavier 200-man heavily armored unit. You know, they're meant for holding. These guys are meant for overrunning your opponents, outflanking, using numbers to your advantage, and so on and so on. Then as we go further back, we again have some more melee Alpine sword band as well. These guys are, born and raised in the mountains of the Alps, and they are ready to fight there. It must get pretty cold though. Them pointy nipples must get pretty erect if you ask me, and this battle is making me erect, so let's get ready to go. And obviously as we go further back, the Oathsworn, the golden standard of any tribal faction, the Oathsworn, gonna get stuck in that 16 melee attack. Is gonna be brutal with the 30 weapon damage and the 40 armor, absolutely deadly. Cavalry wise, we do have some of the heavy shock cavalry, the Celtic noble cavalry. Again, the tribal forces are known for their elite cavalry, and the Insurbry are going to be no different. So it's basically going to be the majority of their forces. I've maybe missed out one or two. And as you can see, the Insurbry are kind of playing quite close together. Instead of using their numbers to their advantage and really trying to envelop the enemy, they've kind of gone a lot more passive and kind of gone a lot more condensed up, and that's kind of good, because it means that they can, if they want to, then push out into these flanks and try and find a gap somewhere. They can kind of spread out and then hit the enemy that way. It's also quite nice as well, because it draws the enemy in. So, for example, Bactria have kind of formed up in a very, very long line, as you can see, and a really nice formation as well. They've got pikes going across every other kind of gap in their battle line is a unit of pikes, and then they've got units of infantry. They've got some of the Phalanx swordsmen who are ready to kind of dive in and kind of fill any gap that gets created during this battle. Missiles going to be Balearic slingers, and I'm sure we're going to get maybe some Cretan archers throughout. Actually, no, I mean, they must, right? If these Greeks get... and these are Bactrian slingers, not Balearic. I was going to say, it's kind of a far away from Bactria, the Balearic Islands. And I don't think they even get access to Cretan archers either whatsoever. So, yeah, these slingers are going to kind of be the majority of the force. And again, we can't see the whole of Bactria's army. There are going to be some units maybe hidden in the fog of war, which we just don't have vision of quite yet. So maybe there are a few missiles, but it doesn't look like Bactria's brought too many missiles. Just going heavy on the Phalanx swordsmen, the pikemen, because again, the Bactrian pikemen are a solid unit that can really just do some damage. And again, any pike unit from the front is going to be almost impossible to break. But again, I love the kind of like teal green armor on them. It looks really dope. But on the flank as well, we do have some more of these medium Furios spearmen. So not Phalanx, but Furios. So a little bit lighter, but still deadly nonetheless. And again, these are 300-man units. So another really important thing to think about whenever you see a 300-man unit, that's 300 javelins times 2. These guys are going to throw 600 javelins before getting stuck into battle. That's enough to kill a lot of soldiers regardless of the quality of your unit. And that's another reason why these 300 soldiers of maybe lesser quality are still really good. Again, these guys still have 18 melee defense, so still nothing to mess around with. And they're going to be backing up the rest of the Bactrian cavalry. Again, love the Bactrian shock cavalry. Look absolutely amazing. This guy's face is a bit small, but hey. Ready for battle, yeah. But the cavalry looks awesome with the branches behind them. Beautiful armor as well. Ready for battle. So that's going to be the engagement ready to get kicked off. And I imagine we're going to kick off this battle with some missile fire coming in. We've got a lot of these slinger just trying to kind of rinse up and just try and take out a few of these pikemen before the battle really engages. Obviously trying to stay out of range of the Bactrians as well. However, the range is very much the same. I mean, honestly, as well, they could definitely utilize this to their advantage. They have way more missiles than them. So they could quite happily trade with the Bactrians. But again, that's kind of what the Bactrians want. They want to try and minimize the missile advantage. Because if they trade like 3 slingers from the Infantry with 4 of the slingers of the Bactrians, they've kind of like cut that missile advantage down. There's going to be a lot less going into their pikes. So this is kind of a pretty, not a bad setup for them. And we're going to go ahead and have some nice close-ups here. And it is really important whenever you're doing these missile fights is to focus down one unit with all of your missiles if you can help it. Because that way you do just kill them so much quicker. Again, Rome 2 works off kind of like a HP system where you kind of need to get rid of that Halo-esque shield. And as soon as that shield goes down, you start to take way more damage. So the first couple of volleys, you'll kill 1 or 2, and then that's when you'll rack up the kills. So if you have all 4 units doing that, or all 5 units kind of hitting 1 unit at a time, you're going to really wreck through them a lot quicker. The Bactrians have really taken advantage of the Infantry's thinner formation or denser formation by bringing their cavalry around, really threatening that. And again, you can see some of the elite shot cavalry. Oh, baby, they look so beautiful. Really do. Taking that Eastern vibe to the next level, I mean. Oh, they look, yeah, they look pretty meaty. Definitely a unit that you're not going to want to be able, you're not going to be able to smash around too much because, yeah, they will tear you apart if you're not careful, if they can get stuck in. And again, they're well supported as well, which is really important. You know, they do have these Furious Spearmen here just to help out in any of the engagements. And again, it doesn't really look like the Infantry have brought much cavalry. They have 2 units over on this right-hand side, another unit over there. They've got a lot more on this infantry fight. And that's going to be difficult because, again, the Bactrians have like 6 or 7 units of them, if not 8. I think they have 8 units of cavalry, so tying that down is going to be important. And that's honestly probably one of the reasons why they have decided to go for this denser formation, because it makes it a lot harder to use this cavalry when you're so packed up. You know, it's much harder for them to hammer and anvil you when you've got infantry supporting. And again, in DEI, it is much harder to effectively withdraw from a battle. You're going to take casualties as you pull out, so especially if the unit's facing you and it's braced as well, you can't just kind of run through everything with cavalry. You can if you get the right angle and you get the right timing and stuff. It's still possible, but it adds a bit more skill and kind of you have to really think about when's the time to commit your cavalry. When can I fully get in? And right now, these pikemen are taking an absolute smashing, down to 243 men, so I've taken some casualties. The infantry on the right-hand side have also got up here, and honestly, it would not be a bad idea for the Infantry to commit a decent amount to these flanks. Obviously, they don't want to overextend, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to just try and crush these outward units and then kind of collapse in on the pikemen in the center. Because again, it's going to be very hard for them to really like dominate that center fight against the pikemen. Obviously, they're going to be able to like hit the sides, but again, they have to worry about that counter punch coming in from the Furious, or from the Phalanx even. Yeah, it's Phalanx in the center. So they're going to have to be very cautious about that. But again, they can just continue to back up on this formation. And I really like as well that they have now committed out here. If anything, it's really important that Bactria do commit these infantry units forward now. Because what's going to happen generally is the Infantry are going to back up and just avoid fighting this front line of pikes because they obviously just can't win. So, you know, you really want to try and push this pike line forward and either give the opponent a chance. You either engage my pike line or you back up, and then that allows soldiers to come completely around the flank to get another awesome charge right there. And then it allows, infantry to then find their way around here just to get in. The cavalry can then come in and do some decent damage. However, after the kind of pretty relentless missile fire, these pikes are struggling. You got some actual bowmen here as well, some light archers, and they're able to actually break through here. And that's a center piece smashed wide open. Luckily, there are still plenty of units to kind of fill this gap, but if you can do this once or twice along the battle line, that's going to be hard to kind of, to fill. Just because of the sheer amount of infantry there. Pikes are getting closer and closer, and honestly, this is perfect. You've got a Helvetii basic spearman holding the line in the shield wall, whilst your missiles just take advantage of the fight. And you really have to have the missile dominance if you really want to push this pike advantage. Because right now, again, it's really hard to use these pikes in a situation like this. I love the way, actually I'll mention that in a second, we're getting elephants charging in here. Generally, it's pretty risky to throw these elephants in when there's so many missiles, but if you can get them stuck in, oh baby, they'll tear through the archers like it's nobody's business. Especially with some pikes supporting them as well. They really are going to be doing good. And in the most recent patch, I believe, they have changed it so elephants take less damage from missiles, but a little bit more damage from infantry. They're still going to die to, a focused fire of missiles, but it's still very good for a shock unit to come in. Unfortunately, the elephants are going down very fast, and I kind of feel like Bactrians maybe used them a little bit too quickly, but still good nonetheless. But what I was saying, the amazing thing about having this formation of these gaps, the Infantry are leaving these gaps intentionally for the enemy units, because it's forcing stuff like this where the pikes just are having to double up and they can't really utilize their formation. Oh, a huge breakthrough though by the Bactrian cavalry right onto all the Infantry slingers. This is a really nice maneuvering and one of the punishments by leaving all these gaps. And I actually really love the formation, the way it's set up. And able to get on a lot of these missiles almost immediately. And again, there's not really a ton of cavalry scattered around to deal with this. Once again, the Bactrians over here are going to get charged, it seems. Yeah, unfortunately, a bit of a unfortunate miss micro there. But again, on a battle of this scale, this is a proper battle right here. There's 20,000 soldiers. You're going to miss micro some stuff, but, still I really love the way the battle is getting set up and played. How the front line's doing over on this left-hand side. Pretty even right now. Oh, wow, the Infantry haven't lost a single man yet on that unit. They're losing a few, so that's obviously a stronger unit right there. Yeah, they are the O-Swarm right there on that right flank. They're cutting through the medium spears, not to be surprised. The Axemen are having a harder time, though, against the Phalanx, so, and again, that's to kind of be expected. We got more infantry as well. The dead elephants, unfortunately, going down. And that cavalry is just deadly. And also, as well as that, the pikes are able to move on. Again, something to keep in mind is you do have to micro pikes in Divide at Impera. You have to make sure that you are constantly clicking to attack or double clicking to advance. So right now it would be extremely deadly. This unit's turned around. If you could notice that, you'd want to double click with this pike unit so that they would push on the enemy and they would do way more damage. It leaves you more vulnerable to getting enveloped and soldiers into the pike wall, but they're turned away. So if there was a double click right now, this unit would just tear into them and cut them to pieces. The cavalry has kind of hit a brick wall, and this is one of the reasons why it's always very difficult to utilize breakthrough units like this in DEI, is because they end up in a really tricky situation where they just get shot to pieces by missiles or countercharged or bogged down. You really have to be very mobile. And the thing is as well, basically every unit in the game has some form of javelin. So because of that, whenever you break through a unit, they're going to take a volley of javelins from some of your reserves at some point. So it's always pretty deadly. However, the Bactrians in this engagement have done a pretty good job right now of getting their main pike wall into the opponents without too much trouble. You can definitely see the units that are taking a lot of pressure right now. That unit of Bactrian swords completely enveloped. And on the right-hand side, they're kind of taking the advantage for themselves, though, by enveloping more and more of these units. But again, the pikes is slow, they're unmaneuverable, and it's going to, again, take them a little while to really rack up the damage as more and more of the pikes do go down. Just trying to kill as many of them as possible. Committing more and more soldiers. The Infantry also have committed a unit. No, this actually this Bactrian cavalry is in the... Oh, they're actually fighting the Infantry cavalry. So they really need to try and win this. But you're already seeing the strength of this cavalry. Haven't lost a single horse. They're outnumbered pretty heavily, even though this unit has taken a fair amount of casualties. Really nice maneuvering here by the Bactrians. And it's super important this cavalry, if they're watching this opponent, goes ahead and pursues them. Because they weren't really mainly engaged or tangled in the enemy unit, they really got away quite nicely there, kind of sacrificing this one unit who is entangled, and that frees up another horse unit to go and send elsewhere. The Bactrians are really starting to put on the pressure now as well, committing more and more soldiers over, and there's nothing really to stop this missile blob from firing, so they're going to get some good angles off on this side, able to push in. However, the Infantry have managed to get a lot of their units stuck in quite nicely, honestly, into the cavalry units and other units that necessarily aren't going to be faring too well against heavier infantry. Like, if the infantry fights this cavalry, that's kind of perfect for them, honestly. It's not something they're really going to be too worried about. You know, they will take that type of engagement pretty happily. The Oathsworn are doing their job. However, we do have a unit of the Bactrians who are going to come into the back of them. The Oathsworn are down. I've got 164 kills. Not bad whatsoever. They are about to get recharged, but unless these guys have ammunition left, like the javelins would be devastating here if they had another throw. I can't imagine they do. If they do, though, it would be game-changing. Doesn't look like it. They'd probably be throwing right now if they did. And they do need support. They need to get sent in almost immediately. Or if anything, I'd give up this fight and send it right into here, because this is where the unit is. Like, this is a fight that you're gonna turn the tables if you commit an extra unit there. Whereas the Oathsworn, I mean, you know, the Oathsworn are gonna turn around and kill you. You know, it's not like you're gonna like recharging them is gonna change this fight. They're just gonna turn around and engage, you know, whatever else comes. They'll be like, who's next? Bring it on. So charging into this might have been a bit better. You probably could have been able to break these medium spears, especially if they commit some more cavalry over here as well. They could quite quickly move around and hit these guys if they want to. How are the pikes doing? Yeah, the pikes are in a perfect situation right now. Oh, this unit is still turned around. It's so hard to realize that this is happening, because when you're microing 40 units, how the hell am I supposed to know that this unit right here is turned this way? It is literally impossible unless you're like zooming in and be like, oh crap, I need to deal with that. It's very, very hard to realize. But it does seem like they are taking the engagement on these pikes, and that's going to be good. You kind of almost get into a situation where you have to engage these pikes. But the longer you can prolong them, the better. You know, pikes are a very difficult unit to use in PvP. They can quite easily be enveloped and then cut to pieces. So you really have to micro them correctly to get their value. Because again, you know, a lot of the Greek players could just bring a whole ton of heavier infantry. It's not like they have a lack of heavy infantry and cavalry that they can utilize. And as you can see, this right flank is looking pretty solid. As we're getting cavalry running amok right now. This heavy shot cavalry about to go flying in. Oh, about to hit. I have to pause it there because we have to get a nice little close-up. Oh, that cavalry about to come ripping through that flank. I mean, that is deadly. I mean, just look at that horse. Oh, it looks beautiful, right? Soldier about to go flying in there. Absolutely amazing stuff as the cavalry continue to push in. Boom! Wrecks through them. Literally tears apart. This is an Oathsworn as well. Completely rips them apart. How many casualties do they rack up on them? Out of interest. Was that it? Only about 10 or 15, I think. Numbers are slowly dropping, and then more reinforcements arriving as well. So really nice stuff there. If you can break the Oathsworn, that's a valuable unit to be sent back. And the Bactrians just showing their true Greek ways. I mean, they're kind of losing the center under the heavier missile fire. The pikes are still holding their own. You know, archers are being committed to the fight. Just any man can make a big difference. But the Bactrians are really starting to dominate, and having this heavier shock cavalry able to do what they just did against a unit of Oathsworn can definitely turn the tide of a battle on its head. You know, this cavalry is just so valuable. We do have a unit of Infantry cavalry coming around though. But I can't imagine they'll be doing too well on the charge against these guys. Obviously in more of a prolonged engagement, I imagine the Infantry are doing great, but on that initial charge, I imagine they would have lost a lot of horses. I didn't see how many they had going in, but dropping out 3 or 4 immediately, and then it will start to rack up over time as well, and that morale will start to come in, and especially if any more cavalry also turn up. However, the Infantry have committed infantry to this fight, so that's a pretty clever move right there. Having extra infantry arrive is going to really aid them in the fight. More pikemen as well, slowly pushing up, and this is going to really kind of surround the Infantry Oathsworn, who are very close to actually breaking. And again, that could leave a bit of a chain route. Yeah, the center, that right flank has been completely opened up now. More cavalry and infantry, or actually just infantry, moving in to finish off these heavier spears, the chosen spears. And even though the Infantry have kind of cleared up that left flank, and also have cleared up the center, the Bactrians are on the right-hand side, so this is actually going to be a very interesting battle. I did not expect the Infantry to win this central fight, but I guess over time they have just racked up a lot of kills, even with the 4-axe swordsman in. Fighting against the Oathsworn, they're going to be pretty evenly matched here in quality. And look at the battle lines as well. Off in the distance, still fighting hard. I mean, you just can't beat it. You can't beat a good old 40v40 Divided Impera battle. I mean, just the scale alone is absolutely spectacular. Let alone the design of the battles. And also the amazing look of the units. As more cavalry comes flying in, just trying to break up this flank. They really need to do it. The Infantry, I think, taking a big advantage on this left-hand side. They have a lot of fresh units. Well, I say fresh, but a lot of reinforcements that are going to be arriving at some point. And, you know, they need to reform this battle line. So the sooner the Bactria deal with this, as the Infantry come in for a charge into the flank. Luckily, there's a lot of dense infantry here, so it's not going to be as effective. But the Bactria need to quickly clean this flank up and then go and reform battle line. You know, as Theoden would say, reform the line. That is going to be this unit broken, I think. I can't imagine this unit of cavalry, yeah, will stick around after a charge like that. Generally, you know a charge is good when the unit doesn't get stuck on the first line or two. If a cavalry unit can break all the way through, you know it's going to be devastating. And whether or not it does a lot of morale damage, it's going to do a lot of casualties on that infantry. And I think even with the spear assistance, this cavalry is going to be taken care of. The infantry are now moving in. However, a lot of this infantry is exhausted. So, you know, we're actually literally forming up and preparing your line again, giving your soldiers time to rest. Honestly, not a bad idea if they wanted to do it. Try and just form like a battle line here. I think that's probably what a lot of the Infantry units are doing, are just getting a little bit of energy back, because units fight much more efficiently when they have got their breath back and they're not exhausted anymore. There's a unit or two scattered around, but nothing too special. And yeah, you can already start to see the exact same thing happening. Units being committed where they need to, but for the most part trying to clean up this flank and then move on. There is also a lot of units here clone up against the Helvetii Spearmen. And it says it's a unit of Helvetii Spearmen, but they have a lot of axes and swords and stuff, so kind of like a whole mix. Maybe it is a mix of two units in this engagement. But they got pike support, so it should be okay. And here we go. The Infantry are now going to be reforming the battle line. I think both sides are going to be reforming the battle line. And just basically trying to prepare themselves for this final engagement. The Infantry do manage to get some good cavalry in. And again, with the morale, the way the morale is, you can see like it's kind of close to a lot of units just breaking. This unit of Macedonian settlers is close to going down the Phalanx unit. But luckily the cavalry did break just before then. But we are going to get another cavalry charge. And keeping on like pounding this unit of pikes. It's a really good charge right there. And that will break pikes fairly quickly. However, we are seeing more cavalry brought up, and the Bactrian general himself might be committed there. Quickly withdrawing, and again, there's not going to be much punishment here because the pikes are engaged frontally. But this blob of Bactrians could be deep behind enemy lines and between a rock and a hard place if Bactria don't fall back, and that's exactly what they are trying to do. They probably need to stop any of these Oathsworn from charging them. But yeah, they need to try and fall back, and the Incerberry need to pursue them. They can't really allow them to fall back as peacefully as they are. They need to kind of chase them, but they're kind of giving them that advantage. And that's going to allow them to kind of form up now. Maybe have to sacrifice a unit or two. But yeah, you can see the morale immediately going back up for these units who are fresh. This unit was close to breaking not 5 minutes ago, or not 2 minutes ago, when that cavalry was hitting. They were being formation breached, they were taking casualties. And now all of a sudden these pikes have managed to fall back and reform. And now they're really, really able to take on their opponents without too much trouble. So it's going to be a very interesting battle to go down. I honestly don't know. Either side could really take an advantage going into this fight. I think the Incerberry definitely have the greater numbers, so if they can use them to full effect, then they'll be in a very, very good situation. They are also wasting a decent amount of their cavalry over on this other side. Fighting... Is this actually more cavalry? No, this is cavalry, yeah. They are still fighting more of the Incerberry cavalry, and you're just seeing the strength of these tribal horses. Really one with the horse today. Like, the Greeks is so much more heavily armored. Got that Persian influence, got these like war axes as well to break through armor. And yet the Incerberry are doing an awesome job at holding them at bay. There's also seemingly a unit all the way back here. Still in the fight. I guess it managed to win that engagement since the beginning of the battle. Now it's going to go in and kill some of these archers who are out of ammunition. I imagine a lot of these guys are stuck out here because they don't want a chain route to arrive. So they've just kind of left their missiles out here because they're out of ammunition. And we don't necessarily need the numbers. But it wouldn't be a bad idea to bring them in. Just to reinforce. You know, every numbers do help. But again, you could find yourself in a massive chain route. All these guys are already close to routing. But unfortunately, it does seem like these spears are going to get in on them and then have to fight them. So... you know, that might end up backfiring on them. There are a few routed units as well that need to be brought back into the fight. And the majority of the Incerberry battle line has now thrust forward. And obviously they're trying to avoid the pikes as best as they can. Mainly focusing down on the small pockets of infantry. And kind of throwing the gauntlet to the Bactrians, you know. Do you want to engage my units? Or do you want to have to rotate and then get outflanked, right? You know, because if the pikes want to turn and actually engage this, then all of a sudden these guys come flying in and hit them in the back. And again, morale isn't great on these pikemen at this point. They're kind of tired. They've taken casualties and stuff, so, you know, it is going to play a fairly big role. And there's still a lot of cavalry for the Incerberry as well they can utilize. I mean, obviously, they have the numbers as well. Even more so if they had all these guys. And you can see... this poor unit of spearmen who are probably just exhausted, now being bum rushed by all the archers and slingers with their poorly equipped weapons and clubs. Really just trying to take down as many of them as possible. But if I've learned one thing from Rome too, is that clubs are brutal. Club levy, one of the best units in the game. There you go, just being overrun, can't handle that many numbers. As I said, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw them being brought in now, honestly. Again, I have to worry about that mass route, but could quite easily bring up more men just to really commit. And as you can see, their tactic of really avoiding the pikes and going in onto the infantry, starting to pay off. It really is. It's just whether or not they'll have enough infantry to do so, especially with this cavalry moving around. But again, look how slow this cavalry is moving. It's exhausted. It needs a moment, for pity's sake. It really does. It just needs to get his breath back because it moves so slowly, and that obviously affects the charge. It affects so much on this unit if it just can't get his breath back. Luckily, the Incerberry are doing a bit of that. I think with a handful of these units ready to commit when they need to. Again, there's no point throwing these units in because they've just been going on the pikes, so you might as well sit them back, let them get their energy back. Again, the pikes are kind of doing the same, but again, the pikes don't necessarily need their energy as effectively than anyone else. And there are luckily some pikes in here, but they're going to get charged in. The now winded, so that's actually not too bad. Not active, but winded infantry now moving in. And again, these are Oathsworn, so a good charge into the side of these Greeks, and they'll cut through the pikes like a hot knife through Botter. It will not even be close. They will slaughter these pikes from the side, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a big rout, unless there can be some more support on here, especially once this unit is as broken it just has. That's opened up an entire outflank right there, no matter where they go. However, the Greek cavalry has now been brought to this right-hand side. Anything to reinforce this and I guess stop that block on the right-hand side from fully breaking. This is also one of the really dangerous things about pikes as well, is now they've been outflanked, it's almost impossible to change this outflank. Because if they try their best and they try and reform and bring the pikes out and just try and set them up here, they'll take so many casualties from this Oathsworn unit as they pick up their pikes and they turn around and they run away. They'll get cut to pieces, they'll get cut to shreds trying to do that. And it's looking pretty dire for the Bactrians right now. The Greeks are just being overrun and these pikes just can't bring themselves to bear as effectively as they would like. I mean, they're getting in on some units, right? But then again, this is one of the problems. You turn to face one unit in a battle like this, and if you're lacking support, then all of a sudden, boom, a unit right into your back comes flying in. Luckily, they've been kind of caught by these guys, which is going to be kind of efficient. But they could just easily pull through here, drag through, and get just completely in the back of this unit. And then you have cavalry threatening. They could definitely move this unit around. I imagine it's here just to kind of protect this flank from any cavalry charges. There you go, the unit has broken. That's the unit of Phalanx, so now these Oaths want to just go to town on the pikes. They're already exhausted, they're shaken. I imagine it is literally only a matter of time until they are gone off into the distance and are no longer going to come back here. This battle is looking very, very scary. But again, never underestimate the Greeks. As long as they have this cavalry, there is always hope. The barbarians are at the gates. They are now pushing in, and now look at that. There's very big morale issues now arriving. All the missiles being kept out just to avoid any of that. Honestly, it would not be a bad idea to just send a cavalry to go kill that. Try and inflict army casualties. Another charge being thrown in, pretty effective, hitting it from multiple sides. However, the enemy in Cerberus cavalry is going to come in just to try and support their men. And you can see the damage of like isolated units now. Look at that morale hit taking effect. If they had like a little bit more follow-up, or these units were a little bit more tired, I mean, just look at the damage they did on these in Cerberus forces. And that's why another thing, it's really punishing if you break through the enemy line and you can't support it. Because stuff like this happens. You get hit from three sides by cavalry, your unit is not going to want to stick around, you know. That's going to be a devastating shock factor. Luckily, though, they have managed to just about hold on by the skin of their teeth and deal some decent damage, sending some of the Bactrians back in. It's just like a conga line of Bactrians retreating from the field. Our left flank is crumbling, and I think that is going to be all she wrote for the Bactrians. So with only a handful of units still left remaining, the Cerberus are just smashing in, using their numbers to their advantage. And that's one of the reasons I love DEI. Numbers really feel like they play a huge role in the game. In Rome 2 vanilla, you could have like 10 units of Praetorian Guard and be outnumbered like 16 to 1 and be absolutely fine. In DEI, if you're outnumbered 2 to 1, that's scary. That's going to be a very difficult battle to win, especially in the open field. Maybe a siege, yeah, I could definitely see you winning a siege outnumbered 2 to 1. In the open field, even if it's crappy men, I would still be worried, you know, unless it's like a literal town garrison. Even then, even just a town garrison, that's still super scary because of the outflank bonuses and how effective units are when they do get, you know, into the side of certain units. It's super scary, and it just makes for such interesting and fun battle gameplay. So as you can see, the end is nigh. A few more units is being brought in now knowing that the battle is basically completely won. Me and Cerberus are going to take... And I'm super happy to go ahead and do more of these DEI battles with the massive DEI tournament coming up. I can't wait to go ahead and cover a handful of them engagements. Definitely looking forward to seeing what some of the smaller factions can do against the bigger factions like Macedon, Rome, the Seleucids, Carthage. There's a lot of strength in them rosters in DEI. It's going to be very fun to see, you know, what the smaller factions can do, especially like Parthia. Like, that's going to be cool to see an entire team playing Parthia. There's a lot of horse archers and how you're going to build against it. It's going to be very exciting. If you guys are interested in this tournament, I think there are no more spots in teams, but people are bound to drop out. So if you want to play some DEI with some guys, I'll leave a link to their Discord down below in the description. A really awesome group of guys who've been sending me in a ton of replays as well, so I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the tournament that they're going to be hosting, as it's going to be, yeah, pretty goddamn crazy. I believe there's like 60 teams or 60 players amongst like 14, 15 teams, or there's like 60 teams and a ton of players. Either way, it's going to be crazy. Lots of really exciting battles, but unfortunately, Bactria are going down, and me and Cerberus are going to clutch this one in a costly victory, but a victory nonetheless. And yeah, look at that. Look how many men were engaged. Over 15,000. Absolutely brutal. So taking a look at the kills, the Oathsworn, over 200 kills on pretty much all of them. This Oathsworn unit got over 500. Absolutely crazy stuff. And yeah, that Bactrian Cavalry really let the side down, honestly. We're just unable to get us stuck in. I'm impressed with the Pikes, though. The Pikes did pretty decent, you know. I mean, some got slaughtered by missiles, but that's kind of what they're going to do, right? They're going to either absorb ammunition or, you know, just hold the line. Their kills aren't necessarily as represented as maybe the infantry are, who just get thrown in and dived in and engaged in upon. But hopefully you guys enjoyed that battle. If you did, make sure to drop a like and a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.